They barely noticed her. Grease-stained coveralls, hair tucked under a cap, a badge that read Times Technical Crew, a 10 Division. Asterisk Staff Sergeant Lena Brooks was just maintenance, the quiet figure who stayed after the pilots swaggered out, after the hangar doors shut and the metal beasts cooled under humming lights. When the roar of turbines faded and laughter died down in the barracks, she remained, sleeves rolled to her elbows, wiping hydraulic fluid from the A-10's skin as though tending a living thing. The others joked she loved those aircraft more than people. They weren't wrong. While others saw machines, Lena saw anatomy. The A-10's frame wasn't metal. It was bone and muscle, sinew and breath. Every bolt had a rhythm, every wire a pulse. She knew the sound of a misaligned compressor the way a medic knows a heartbeat gone astray. Long before dawn, she'd crawl under the wings with her flashlight clamped between her teeth, tracing the titanium armor plates that could take cannon fire and keep flying. The air was always thick with the smell of burnt fuel, solvent, and rain leaking in from the cracked hangar roof. When the night crew dozed off in the break room, Lena stayed awake. She had her rituals, a quiet checklist whispered into the dark. Fuel seals, flight control rods, hydraulic pressure calibration. Then, when everything gleamed in mechanical perfection, she would climb into the cockpit. Not to dream, to remember. She had once been close times, so close times to a flight seat. 2 years of prep, top of her class in aeronautical theory, a letter of recommendation already signed. Then budget cuts, political reshuffling, and one cold morning she was told she'd been reassigned to ground operations. Maintenance suits you, her commanding officer had said. You'll be close to the planes you love. It wasn't cruelty, it was bureaucracy wearing a smile. And she'd nodded, saluted, swallowed the ache. But she never stopped flying, not really. Somewhere in the networked quiet of the base simulation center, she'd found a backdoor login. It wasn't authorized, but it worked. Every night after her shift, when the world above the hangar fell asleep, Lena logged in. 800 hours of simulated flight takeoffs, strafing runs, ground support patterns. She flew through storms that never existed, battles that were never fought, in skies no one would ever see. Her call sign was blank, her record invisible. But in that hidden world, she mastered the hog. Outside those screens, she kept her silence. The pilots talked loud and often, calling the A-10 a flying tank, boasting about their strafing scores and combat stories. Lena kept her eyes on the machine. She smiled only when she heard the cannon's low growl roll through the hangar after testing a sound like thunder promising justice. Sometimes, when no one was watching, she'd rest her forehead against the metal skin of the aircraft and whisper, "Someday." It wasn't a plea. It was a promise. The hog didn't answer, but she swore it listened. When the last light flickered out and the wind slipped through the hangar cracks, the whole place went still. In that silence, surrounded by steel and ghosts of flight, Lena Brooks would close her eyes and imagine the sky not as a dream, but as a destination delayed. They called her just maintenance, but the sky, if it could speak, would have said otherwise. It started as a joke, the kind of cruel, effortless laughter that fills a room before anyone realizes what it costs. The unit's pilot lineup was running short, 2 down with injuries, 1 reassigned, and command had opened temporary selection. It was supposed to be a formality, a morale exercise, a chance for the eager to volunteer before being politely turned away. No one expected a mechanic to walk in. When Staff Sergeant Lena Brooks stepped into the briefing room, the smell of jet fuel still clung to her uniform. Her coveralls were marked with streaks of hydraulic oil and graphite, a wrench still clipped to her belt. She didn't wear a flight suit. She didn't have wings on her chest. She didn't even belong in that room, not by regulation standards anyway. But there she was, standing beneath the flickering fluorescence, quiet, still, unshaken. For a moment, the pilots blinked in confusion. Then the laughter came. "Brooks, You're here to fix the plane, not fly it. Someone tell her the simulator's not for cleaning. Does she even know which end points forward? The room erupted, chairs scraped, voices bounced off the steel walls, and someone actually clapped. Lena said nothing. She just looked at the flight board behind them, the lineup of 8 seconds ready for rotation, each aircraft ID etched into her memory long before this moment. She knew their engine cycles, their maintenance intervals, which hydraulic seals tended to bleed under pressure, which cannon feed belts needed hand alignment. They called them their birds. She'd built them, bolt by bolt. When the noise finally settled, Captain Dwyer leaned back in his chair, smirk sharp as glass. All right, Brooks. Since you're here, let's hear it. What are your qualifications? Lena's eyes met his without flinching. I can fly the Hog. The silence that followed wasn't respect. It was disbelief wrapped in condescension. Someone coughed to hide a laugh. Another whispered, she's serious. Dwyer grinned like a man watching someone walk willingly into a firing line. Tell you what, maintenance, he said. You can have the simulator after the real pilots finish playing. The word times playing times landed heavy, deliberate. The room broke into laughter again, but Lena didn't move. She just nodded once, turned, and walked out. The laughter followed her down the hallway like the echo of a firing squad. That night, the hangar slept. The only sounds were the ticking of cooling engines and the low hum of security lights. Lena waited patient, silent until even the duty officer's footsteps faded. Then she slipped into the simulation bay. The chair was cold, the controls familiar. She didn't need an instructor. She didn't need permission. She selected Mission 12C, a close air support exercise notorious for breaking rookies, and entered without hesitation. The HUD blinked alive. The Hog roared in digital fidelity, and Lena Brooks flew. She didn't just complete the mission, she dismantled it. Her strike efficiency was 97%, her fuel management flawless, her terrain approach perfect. She didn't chase the targets, she predicted them. Every turn, every dive, every pull-up was a memory of machinery translated into motion. The simulator logged her performance automatically, date-stamped, ID coded under a blank user entry. When she stepped out, the lights flickered. The hangar smelled of cold metal and ozone, the same way it did before dawn. She looked up at the dark ceiling and almost smiled. For the first time, the Hog had felt times alive, times beneath her hands, not a machine to fix, but an extension of will. The next morning, the instructor reviewed the sim logs. His brow furrowed when he saw the results. No pilot had flown that perfectly in months. 97% strike efficiency. Clean pass on all parameters. No crashes, no faults. Who the hell was on station last night? He asked. No one answered. But by noon, whispers began to spread through the hangar. No one admitted it was her. But everyone knew. The laughter stopped after that, not out of guilt, out of unease, because suddenly, just maintenance had done something none of them could explain. And deep down, they knew that if Lena Brooks ever touched a real cockpit, the sky might never look the same again. The alarm hit like thunder, a deep, bone-rattling tone that cut through the night and sent every airman sprinting for stations. The base plunged into controlled chaos, doors slamming, boots pounding on concrete, radios erupting in bursts of static and clipped orders. Power flickered, monitors died, and the hangar lights pulsed in and out of darkness. A blackout drill, unannounced, full protocol, every unit scrambled to readiness. One aircraft sat fueled and armed at standby, an A-10 Thunderbolt, its canopy fogged with condensation, engines cold but ready. The pilot assigned to it was nowhere in sight, grounded with a sudden fever that command hadn't accounted for. The mission clock on the wall was bleeding seconds, a countdown that didn't forgive hesitation. Inside the confusion, Lena Brooks was already moving. She knew the checklist by heart, not the technician's checklist, the pilot's. Fuel flow, oxygen, avionics, hydraulics, flight control systems. Her hands moved fast, precise, memorized from years of maintenance and hundreds of simulator runs no one had authorized. "Brooks," someone shouted from across the hangar. "What the hell are you doing? Your ground crew stand down." She didn't look up. "Then you'll lose the hog." Her voice wasn't raised, but it carried flat, calm, certain. It stopped people mid-stride. The kind of tone that doesn't argue, it declares. The commander hesitated, eyes darting between her and the mission clock now blinking red. They had 60 seconds until the window closed. Permission never came, but Lena didn't wait for it. The A-10's turbines roared to life, a deep animal growl that shook dust from the rafters. Lights stuttered, the emergency generators kicked in, and the hangar doors began to part. The blast of exhaust blew loose papers into a storm. Someone reached for the comm to abort, but the signal was dead. She was already rolling. The hog crawled forward, engines spooling to a scream, its twin tails cutting through the flickering darkness like blades. She eased it onto the runway, slow, steady, sure. The blacktop stretched ahead, illuminated only by the faint edge lights that still functioned on auxiliary power. Then she pushed the throttle forward. The acceleration hit like gravity unspooling. The aircraft tore down the strip, wheels lifting with a howl. No rather, no guidance, pure instinct. Lena climbed into the dark sky, the blackout drill in full swing. The stars above looked cold and sharp, the earth below swallowed in shadow. Her target coordinates blinked faintly on the HUD, a simulated convoy moving through mountain terrain, part of the live fire evaluation. Blank ordnance, but full risk. She knew the path: narrow valleys, sheer cliffs, crosswinds designed to disorient. She flew as though she'd done it 100 times before because she had. Not in reality, but in every midnight sim run that had ever blurred the line between machine and mind. Her movements were surgical. Throttle adjustments in fractions, turns just shy of stall limits. She cut through the mountain ridges like water through glass. She broke 3 procedural limits during that flight altitude restriction, turn radius and engagement angle, each one a violation that saved the mission's timing by seconds. By the time she returned, the base had regained full power. The runway lights were back on. Personnel stood in disbelief as the A-10 descended perfectly, landing smooth and centered, flaps extended like wings of judgment. When the canopy lifted, Lena's face was streaked with sweat and light reflected from the instrument panel. She unstrapped, climbed out, and saluted silently before walking past the crowd that hadn't yet decided whether to applaud or arrest her. The review board convened the next day. They tried to write it off as a glitch, a breach of safety, a desperate act during a non-critical exercise. But the flight data didn't lie. Her response time, targeting precision, and path optimization ranked higher than any pilot in the unit. Captain Dwyer sat in silence as the metrics appeared on the screen. 98% mission success under blackout conditions, 0 system faults, 0 panic. Someone muttered, "It can't be right." The commander only said, "Then find me someone who can fake numbers like that." That night, no one laughed when she walked through the hangar. The hog was still cooling on the tarmac, its skin glinting under the floodlights like something alive. Lena paused beside it, hand brushing the fuselage the way she always had, not with pride, but with quiet gratitude. The next morning, a message appeared on the operations board. No sender, no signature, just 3 words. Pilot status, pending. The warning klaxon tore through the air like a physical thing, rattling the windows and sending a shockwave through every corridor of the base. It wasn't a drill this time. The voice over the intercom confirmed it: enemy drones had breached radar range. 3 of them, fast and low, each one armed for destruction. The 8 seconds were the only birds on the tarmac capable of intercepting them before they reached the perimeter. But there was a problem: 2 pilots down, and the others still inbound from a secondary site miles away. Command hesitated, and that hesitation stretched into seconds the base couldn't afford. In the command center, officers barked for updates. Screens flickered between static and thermal signatures of incoming hostiles. The words *stand by, repeated like a mantra no one believed. Outside, on the dim-lit runway, Lena Brooks stood beside the Hog she'd spent the last 4 years keeping alive. The aircraft gleamed with the faint, silver wash of dawn breaking somewhere beyond the clouds. Her pulse was steady, her decision already made. She didn't wait for orders. She didn't ask for clearance. She simply climbed the ladder, strapped in, and reached for the helmet hanging from the cockpit rail. The comms officer's voice cracked over the radio, panic threading every syllable. "Ground crew, what are you doing? That's a restricted." Lena cut him off. "Maintenance reporting," she said, voice even, almost calm. "I can fly the Hog." For a heartbeat, silence filled the channel. Then, from somewhere deep within the control tower, someone whispered, "Oh God, she's actually doing it." Engines roared to life. The turbines whined up through their familiar spectrum, that rising, mechanical scream that made the ground tremble. Smoke and dust kicked up behind her as the A-10 lurched forward, heavy and patient, a predator waking from sleep. Sirens still blared, personnel scattered from the runway. But no one dared step in front of her. Lena pushed the throttle. The Hog leapt forward, faster than it had any right to under emergency load, wheels slicing off the ground and disappearing into the smoke. She climbed hard into a sky already streaked with tracer fire. The first drone appeared on the radar as a blip closing too fast. The others followed. She adjusted pitch, rolled once to calibrate the sighting systems, and switched the cannon from safe to armed. They came in low. She came lower. Her first burst of fire cut through the lead drone in a spray of shattered metal and flame. The second maneuvered higher, searching for advantage, but Lena was already beneath it, rolling the Hog into a near-impossible inverted pass that locked her target dead center. The GAU-8 thundered the kind of sound that makes the Earth remember war. The second drone disintegrated before its sensors could react. The third turned tail, fleeing toward the horizon, but she was faster. Her strafing run chased it across the desert flats until the heat signature blinked out. 3 kills, no losses. And she had done it all with the precision of someone who didn't just know the plane she times was times the plane. When she returned, smoke still curled above the dunes. The runway lights flickered as the A-10 touched down smoother than any test flight. The entire base had gathered by the hangar command, pilots, mechanics, no one spoke. The engines wound down, the night wind carrying only the faint hum of victory. Lena climbed out, unlatched her helmet, and handed it to the nearest officer. Her eyes were clear, her hands steady. "I'll handle repairs, too," she said quietly. And then she walked away, leaving the Hog cooling behind her, heat rippling off its armor like a ghost, refusing to fade. After that day, no one called her just maintenance. The jokes stopped, the smirks died. What remained was a legend whispered in hangars across bases, retold to new recruits who were warned never to underestimate the quiet ones. They called her times Iron Angel, times the first crew chief to become an active combat pilot. Months later, a small plaque appeared near the weapon racks in Hangar 4, mounted beside a photo of an A-10 against a crimson dawn. The inscription read, **. She didn't wait for clearance. She became it, **. And every time the Hog took to the air, the mechanics swore it sounded different, like the sky itself remembered the woman who refused to stay grounded.